At my brother's wedding, my parents publicly humiliated me, not knowing that I was the owner of the company organizing the entire celebration. In response, I ordered my team to wrap everything up and leave. 300 guests were left without food. I've always dreamed of being my own boss. That dream is what led me to start a catering business from scratch. It all began during my college years with nothing more than a modest food truck, and over time, it grew into a full-blown catering company. Now I've got a solid team of over 50 people, and we handle upscale events all around Chicago. Getting to this point wasn't easy. It took years of grinding through sleepless nights, giving things up, and just sheer determination. It took me almost a decade to build what I have now, and I take real pride in this business. It's my baby. That backstory matters because of what happened last weekend. My little brother's wedding, it was supposed to be a joyful occasion, but it turned into a total disaster. Let me back up a bit. I hadn't really been in touch with my family for nearly 6 years. When I was 14, my mom passed away. Just a year later, my dad remarried a woman named Linda, my stepmom. Right from day one, Linda made it crystal clear she didn't want any trace of my mom left in our lives. My dad, eager to move on, let her erase my mom's memory from our home. That decision put a real strain between us. My younger brother, Jake, he was just 10 at the time, got really close to Linda. But for me, it was tough dealing with how fast she took over the house, like she ran the place. That's when things between me and Dad really started to fall apart. We slowly drifted apart from then on. The real breaking point came during college. I was juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay my tuition, because my dad flat out refused to help financially. He said it was time I learned how to be responsible. Meanwhile, he paid every penny of Jake's tuition at a fancy private university. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It was right there, plain as day. Linda treated me like I was nothing more than a burden. She never missed a chance to talk down to me or brush off the effort I was putting into building my business from the ground up. Linda, my stepmom, used to mock my catering work all the time. She'd call it my little food truck game, like it was some hobby I'd grow out of, while going on and on about how Jake, my brother, had a real career in finance. After college, I pretty much cut ties with the family. I'd show up for a holiday here or there, but even that was rare. What really pushed me over the edge happened 6 years ago. I found out, after the fact, that my dad and Linda had sold our family home. They didn't even bother telling me. By the time I learned about it, they'd already moved. Just like that, everything that belonged to my mom, things I had planned to keep, was gone. When I confronted my dad about it, he told me I was being too emotional and that I needed to let go and move on with my life. That was the final straw. I made the decision then and there to cut off contact completely. Then, out of the blue, just last month, I got an official wedding invitation from Jake. Along with it was a handwritten note from him saying he missed me and wanted to reconnect. He hoped we could rebuild what we used to have. I took a while to think it over. I mean, with everything that had happened, I wasn't sure. But in the end, I figured maybe it was time to give things another shot. Maybe we could finally put the past behind us. As a gesture of goodwill, I even offered to cater the wedding at a steep discount, basically just to help out and show I was sincere. Jake politely turned me down. He said they'd already hired another company. That stung a little more than I expected, but I let it go. The wedding was held at a gorgeous venue up in Lake Forest. I showed up with cautious optimism, not really sure what to expect. Jake looked genuinely happy to see me, which gave me a bit of relief. Maybe this wasn't going to be so bad. But Linda? She hadn't changed a bit. The moment she spotted me, she made a couple of snide comments about how I looked and threw in a jab or two about my business. I just ignored it, tried to brush it off, and focused on enjoying the ceremony, which, to be fair, really was beautiful. But when it came time for the dinner seating, the message was loud and clear. They sat me way in the back with a few distant cousins I barely knew. It felt like a quiet reminder that, as far as they were concerned, I still didn't belong. Then, during the reception, things went completely off the rails. My dad, clearly drunk, stumbled over to my table, and without warning, he just started tearing into me. He came at me, out of nowhere, and accused me of crashing the wedding, even though the invitation was literally in my jacket pocket. Then, loud enough for everyone at the table to hear, he called me a disgrace to the family. He said I was ruining Jake's big day just by being there. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, Linda jumped in with that fake sweet tone of hers. She asked, with a smug little smile, how much money I was really making, playing restaurant owner. Then she glanced at my suit and made a snide remark, something about how someone like me probably couldn't afford that kind of outfit. The level of arrogance was just unbelievable. I didn't say a word. I knew arguing wouldn't lead anywhere, especially with my dad clearly drunk and Linda practically enjoying the whole scene. So instead of feeding into it, I quietly turned and walked out. I was heading toward my car when I noticed something strange. The catering staff was just starting to serve the main course, and a couple of them looked oddly familiar. I took a closer look, and yeah, they were my people. My own employees. That's when it hit me. The catering company Jake had hired for the wedding? We'd bought them out a few months earlier. The former owner had stayed on as operations manager, which is why I hadn't been directly involved in this particular event. But legally, that company, and everything they did, was under my umbrella. I immediately called my ops manager to confirm what I was now almost certain of. And sure enough, he said, "Yeah, that's our event. We're catering Jake's wedding." I thought back to my dad's words, how I was an embarrassment, how my presence was ruining things. And suddenly it all clicked. If my being there was such a problem, then surely they wouldn't want my company serving food at their precious celebration. So I made a decision. I told my team to shut it down. Right then and there. 15 minutes later, about 25 of my staff had packed up every tray of food, every piece of gear, and every plate and fork, and were driving away in the trucks. The reception turned into chaos almost instantly. 300 guests, no dinner. People started whispering, looking around, realizing something had gone seriously wrong. My dad tried to step in, but at that point, it was out of his hands. See, in the catering contract, signed before the ownership transfer, there was a clause that allowed us to terminate service in cases of hostile or discriminatory behavior toward staff or leadership. And well, that's exactly what just happened. Before I left the venue, I handed my business card to the site manager and told him to have my father reach out to my attorney if there were any issues with payment. I figured it was best to keep things professional from that point forward. The fallout didn't take long. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with messages from relatives, all calling me selfish and petty. Jake, my brother, sent me a long text accusing me of ruining his wedding and saying I'd proven that Linda had been right about me all along. My dad? No surprise there. He threatened to sue me for breach of contract. I didn't even flinch. I forwarded every message and piece of communication to my lawyer and then blocked all their numbers. But then something unexpected happened. A few hours later, I started getting messages from some of the wedding guests. And to my surprise, a handful of them were actually on my side. They said they'd seen how my dad and Linda treated me and were shocked by how openly disrespectful they were. One of Jake's friends, someone who had hired my company for a corporate event a while back, sent me a message apologizing for the whole mess. He told me he was impressed by how quickly and professionally my team handled things, even in such a tense situation. That support meant more than I expected. It reminded me that not everyone was blind to what had actually happened. Over the next few days, I found out that word of the wedding drama was spreading. Apparently, the whole story had made the rounds among Jake's coworkers and friends. And pretty quickly, Linda's carefully polished image started to crack. A few mutual acquaintances even told me that Linda was going around trying to downplay what happened, blaming the entire disaster on me and insisting I'd acted out of spite. But the truth was already out there, and nobody was buying her version of events. The damage was done. I've spent a lot of time thinking over everything that went down. And honestly, I don't feel guilty. Not one bit. I didn't crash their wedding. I didn't start a scene. I was invited, legitimately invited, and all I got in return was public disrespect and humiliation. They were the ones who decided to try and put me down in front of 300 people. I just responded in the only way I could, by exercising my legal right to end service. That wasn't personal. That was business. If they didn't want me there, then they sure didn't need my services either. Simple as that. I'll be real with you. This whole mess dragged me right back into the family drama I've tried to avoid for years. And now, I keep turning it over in my head, wondering if I went too far, or if maybe, just maybe, they really did have it coming after how they treated me. Truth is, I'm still not totally sure. That's actually why I'm telling this story now. I needed to get it off my chest. Maybe hear from someone outside the situation. So let me ask you, do you think what I did was justified? Seriously, pause this for a second and let me know in the comments what you think. I can take it. Look, I know the moment I pulled the plug on the catering, I crossed a line for some folks. Technically, I had every legal right to do what I did. It was in the contract, clear as day. But I get that from the outside, it might look like I mix personal grudges with professional decisions. And maybe that doesn't sit right with everyone. I mean, yeah, I had reasons. Deep, personal ones. They tried to humiliate me in public. And I didn't yell. I didn't throw a fit. I just made a business decision and walked away. But I also get how people might see it another way. Like I let personal emotions interfere with a client's big day. And honestly, if I were someone looking to hire a catering company and I heard this story, I'd probably hesitate too. I'd think, what if something goes wrong at my wedding? What if the owner doesn't like something I say, and suddenly the whole thing's off? I totally get that concern. Maybe if I had pulled out before the event even started, it would have looked cleaner, more professional. But once I saw how they treated me face to face, it didn't feel like a business deal anymore. It felt like a setup. Like I was supposed to take their insults quietly, smile for the photos, and then feed their guests while they whispered behind my back. So no, I wasn't okay with that. And I do hope my brother and his bride got their money back. Honestly, I'd be shocked if they didn't. We were funded the full amount for the food that wasn't served, and per the contract, we weren't obligated to do more. Compensation? Unlikely, unless a court forced it. But I didn't make that call out of spite. I made it because enough was enough. Anyway, that's where things stand. No tidy resolution. Just a big mess, a lot of emotions, and a decision I'll probably keep thinking about for a long time. But at the end of the day, I stood up for myself. I didn't yell. I didn't throw punches. I just walked away, with my dignity and my company intact. Was it the right move? That's up to you to decide. First off, I just want to say thank you for all the incredible support. Honestly, I didn't expect this story to blow up the way it did, but I'm beyond grateful for every kind word, message, and comment. The response was overwhelming in the best way. I tried to reply to as many of you as I could, but man, it got exhausting fast. Still, I read every single message, and a lot of your perspectives really made me think about things in a new light. A bunch of people asked the same question. Are my dad and Linda actually going to follow through with legal action? Short answer? Yeah. Just like I figured, they've threatened to sue. So here's what's happened since that whole wedding disaster went down. Right after the reception blew up, I got in touch with my attorney to start preparing for whatever nonsense might come our way. We went over the contract between my catering company and the previous owner of the business. You know, the one my brother or his wedding planner signed. The good news? The contract is rock solid. There's a very clear clause in there that allows us to terminate service in the event of hostile or discriminatory behavior toward our staff or leadership. That clause was added for exactly this kind of situation, when things spiral out of control and someone on our team is being mistreated. To make sure we were fully covered, I also got in touch with the venue manager. She confirmed that the surveillance cameras on site had picked up the whole thing. On the footage, you can clearly see my dad walk up to me. The audio isn't perfect, but the video alone shows enough. His body language, the aggression, the way he cornered me. And yes, Linda's snide little comments were caught on camera too. Her tone and expression made it pretty obvious what was going on. Their behavior crossed the line into hostile territory, plain and simple. So, from a legal standpoint, I had every reason, and every right, to shut things down. With that kind of evidence in hand, I felt pretty confident going into any kind of legal back and forth. A few days after the wedding, my lawyer sent a formal letter to my father's attorney. We laid everything out: the facts, the video, the clause in the contract, and a full explanation of why we stopped service. We made it clear this wasn't a random emotional reaction. It was a contractual decision backed by policy and precedent. We even mentioned the security footage in our letter, and made it clear we were ready to provide it if necessary. For a moment, I thought that might be the end of it, that maybe they'd back off once they realized we were fully prepared. But of course, I underestimated just how stubborn and vindictive Linda can be. Yesterday, my dad's lawyer hit us with a formal response. They're demanding a full refund for the catering. Not only that, they're threatening to sue for damages, claiming that by halting service, I ruined the wedding and caused irreparable harm. They're asking for compensation not just for the food, but for the entire event falling apart. Naturally, I had no intention of giving in to any of that. I wasn't about to pay a dime to the very people who created the whole mess in the first place. After talking it through with my lawyer, we decided to offer a counterproposal. We're willing to return 50% of the deposit, but only under two strict conditions. First, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, meaning they can't publicly talk about the situation or post any negative reviews about me or my business. Second, they must sign a full liability release, giving up any right to pursue future legal action against me or my company regarding this incident. We sent that offer over, and now we're just waiting to hear back. Even with all the legal back and forth, Linda still tried to stir things up. A few days ago, the venue manager gave me a call to let me know Linda had attempted to post several negative reviews about my catering company online. In those posts, she claimed we deliberately sabotaged the wedding and made a scene just to humiliate their family. Thankfully, the manager caught it quickly and shut it down before it spread, but still, it's exhausting to have to deal with this kind of petty drama. My legal team is keeping a close eye on the situation, and if Linda keeps spreading lies, we'll treat it as defamation and respond accordingly. We're not playing around. Funny thing though, despite the chaos, this whole ordeal has actually led to some unexpected wins for my business. A handful of guests from the wedding reached out to me afterward. Some just wanted to show support, but a few even said they were impressed with how smoothly and professionally my team handled things. One person told me they'd never seen a crew pack up and move out with such efficiency. A couple of them even asked about hiring us for their own events. So yeah, in a weird way, what was meant to be a public slap in the face ended up highlighting exactly what we do best: stay calm, stay sharp, and get the job done. It's a strange feeling, realizing that a disaster like this could actually open new doors. But somehow, that's exactly what's happened. It's been the one silver lining in an otherwise exhausting chapter. As for my brother Jake, he still hasn't reached out to me directly. But he did send a message through one of our cousins. In it, he admitted he felt guilty for not standing up for me at the wedding. He said he kept quiet because he didn't want to stir the pot with Dad and Linda when everything started going sideways. He apologized and asked if we could meet to talk things through. And I'm torn. Part of me wants to give him the chance to explain himself. But the other part of me can't help thinking it's too late for all that. At least for now. So I've decided to hold off on any sit down with him until all the legal stuff is wrapped up. I don't need more emotional weight on my shoulders while I'm dealing with potential lawsuits. On a personal level, I've done a lot of thinking. In some ways, I'm proud of myself. I finally stood up and drew the line after years of being treated like I didn't belong. My family kept me at arm's length for so long, and at that wedding, I made it clear that I won't be walked over anymore. Legally and professionally, I know I did the right thing. But emotionally, this whole ordeal has drained me. It's hard not to feel a deep sense of loss. Even though I've been distant from my family for years, Jake's wedding was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it turned into a legal headache and another explosion of family drama. That was never what I wanted. And the weight of all this, it's starting to hit hard. I've been thinking a lot about what this means for the future. What kind of long-term damage this might do to whatever relationships I have left with the rest of the family. Will things ever go back to normal? Could I rebuild anything with Jake, or is it all too far gone? Right now, I don't have those answers. It's going to take time. For now, I'm just focused on seeing how Dad and Linda respond to the NDA and settlement proposal. If they accept, maybe, just maybe, we can finally close this chapter and move on. But if they refuse and decide to go to court, then so be it. I'll be ready to stand my ground and defend both myself and my business. Whatever happens next, I'll keep you posted. And once again, thank you for your support, for your empathy, for every kind comment and message. It truly means the world to me, especially during such a chaotic, stressful time. Since my last update, things have only gotten messier, but at least the legal stuff is finally behind me. That said, I recently found out something pretty interesting. One of my business partners, who happens to have a working relationship with the wedding planner Mark and Linda hired, reached out and shared some behind-the-scenes details about what had really been going on before the wedding. Turns out, the chaos didn't start with me showing up. It had been brewing for weeks. According to my partner, Linda was an absolute nightmare to work with from day one. She kept demanding last-minute changes to the floral arrangements, even after everything had already been agreed on. She argued with the planner about nearly every detail. Nothing was ever good enough. They had to redesign the wedding cake at least 3 times because she couldn't make up her mind about the style she wanted. And just a few days before the event, she insisted on completely changing the seating chart. Imagine trying to reassign seats for 300 people multiple times. It was a logistical headache and incredibly expensive. On top of that, things were getting tense between Linda and the venue staff. Apparently, she made a few condescending remarks about their professional standards, suggesting they weren't quite up to par for such a high-class wedding, which is honestly laughable, considering that venue is one of the top-rated in the city, and their team is known for world-class service. She even tried to overhaul the band's music lineup at the last minute, despite the fact that Mark and his fiancée had already approved the full set list months in advance. Basically, it was one of those classic mother of the groom takes over the whole show situations. Linda had her hands in everything, turning what should have been a joyful process into a full-on nightmare for everyone involved. My partner told me the wedding planner was this close to walking off the job entirely. The only reason he stuck it out was pure professionalism. He held it together, but not without taking a hit emotionally from all the pressure and unreasonable demands. So yeah, learning all that kind of reframed things for me. By the time I walked in, the whole thing was already a mess. I just happened to be the final spark that lit the